My name is Toby Shapshak, and today I'm speaking to Dr. Belinda Rathogwa, who is the head of digital and e-commerce at Standard Bank South Africa's personal and private banking. Good morning, Belinda, and thank you for being as paranoid as I am about cybersecurity. I mean, people think I'm like crazy, but I should probably say, hello, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning, Toby. Thank you for having me. And no, you're not crazy. This is a real issue that we need to stand up and deal with.
I want you to say that again. I'm not crazy and everyone else is. And I'm going to send it to my mother. But to my mind, I mean, I always struggle to understand why South Africans, with all of our security concerns, let's call it physical security to differentiate it. We're worried about walls. We're worried about barbed wire. I mean, you drive through, rich suburbs with high walls. Everyone has a security guard place. I mean, I don't know if there's security guards in there. I'm sure the machine gun emplacement's gone out of fashion. But we're so obsessed with our physical security, and yet we are so naive when it comes to cybersecurity, and it troubles me. Yeah. I'm sure from the bank's perspective, it's much more problematic because people can be easily scammed and conned. And it's the human gullibility, isn't it? That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, you see, with physical security, you've got very clear markers. It's a lot more visible and obvious, even to somebody who may not be well versed on security. Whereas with digital security, it's a lot less so. And if you take into account as well the digital literacy levels in the country, it makes it even harder for people to immediately catch when there's a threat online. And that's why we must do the work to educate and inform them.
Yeah, Arthur Goldstuck, the brilliant journalist and researcher, has said for years and years that it takes 5 years from when people start using internet to the point where they understand e-commerce and can use e-commerce. And I think that time frame's probably accelerated in the last few years because certainly from COVID, there was a real push. People couldn't ask their grandkids or their kids. My mother's 96. She got much more tech savvy because instead of asking someone for help, people learned it themselves.
Yes.
But the problem is there just isn't, like we learn basic maths and bookkeeping and geography and history at school. I think cybersecurity should be part of the curriculum.
I absolutely agree with you. If we use the analogy of a road, if you built a highway in a suburb, you'd need to teach the kids, look left, look right, look left before crossing the street. It's the same thing with cybersecurity. We're seeing much greater adoption of digital technologies in people's everyday lives, and we need to do the work to help them look left, look right, look left before crossing to stay safe.
Absolutely. And I like that analogy. I'm gonna work with it. I'm gonna work with the phrase because you're absolutely right. My son is 7. I keep telling him, look left, look right. You're right. It should be the kind of, I'm so paranoid about cybersecurity. Even my 96-year-old mother emails me things and says, I don't think I should do this. I'm like, thank you for being the only one who's listened, Ma.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's the gullibility because I've listened to audio recordings and I've had people tell me what someone said to them. I've had a couple of scams where people have tried to scam me.
Yeah.
And because I know what to expect, I don't buy into it. But if you're not prepared, it's terrifying. I got a call from someone the other day. She's a very senior business person. I won't say who.
Yeah.
And she got caught out. Someone phoned her while she was driving. They said, if you don't do it now, this will happen, that'll happen. She's a smart woman. She's a CFO of a big company. And she got caught out just because they managed to tap that gullibility, that fear. If you don't do it now, you're going to lose money. And then they get aggressive and then they push you. And that's kind of what we've got to teach people, which is why I quite liked your fairy tale, because it's a totally new message. It's a quirky message. We all know Hansel and Gretel, right?
Yeah. If I can just talk through the gullibility, I wonder if it's gullibility or if it's that fraudsters can be very smart. Many of us have this assumption that fraudsters are chances that just got off the street and tried a trick. But they actually spend a lot of time trying to work
Yeah.
out ways to penetrate the defenses. And that's why you see that cybercrime has moved from, brute force trying to get into
Yeah.
systems, because as banks have put layers and layers and layers of security, it's harder for them to get in. And
Yeah.
so what do? They look for the weakest link, and that is the person under duress. Often, when cybercrime happens, they create a sense of urgency, they create a sense of fear,
Yeah.
or sometimes they tap into a desperation. They know somebody doesn't have money and there's an incentive that they desperately need. So these guys lean into the psychology of people to actually get past the defenses. We cannot underestimate the importance of that. It's called social engineering for a reason. You are engineering the social interactions to get through. And so that's why we decided to tell the stories from a very social and human perspective, because that's also what fraudsters are trying to lean into. We need to make sure that everybody is aware and can recognize the signs of a potential threat from afar.
And it's just because, in the physical world, we know, I mean, we use like a Tsotsi walking down the street. He's like wearing a leather jacket. He looks like a figure from the West Side Story, that kind of classic villain look. And then we all cross the street.
Yeah. People are working from home as fraudsters doing this work. It's very deliberate. It is not by chance.
Yeah.
They wake up every day and they look for new ways to get information about you so that they can penetrate the defenses and take your hard-earned money.
And it's unbelievable the levels that people will go to. So that's why I come back to, it's not like when people get scammed, because they email us and a few people call me and they all feel terrible. And I say to them, you are the victim.
Yes.
Like, I'm not going to tell you were stupid. Like they know they've made a mistake.
Absolutely.
And it's like, so the system is, it's like the same problem with so many other crimes that happen. The victims get treated badly.
Yeah.
So that's why I think something like what you're doing with these fairy tale adverts are really important, because it's something that will stick in the mind. And that's really ultimately what we need to do. We need to make it conscious in people's mind. We need to make it look left, look right.
Fairy tales have been used for generations to pass down important information, and they're memorable, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to remember than receiving an email from the bank saying, don't share your OTP, don't share your login credentials. Make sure that whoever's calling you, you don't just give them your information. It's a lot
Hansel
easier.
never gave out his OTP, people.
Right? So I think fairy tales are a perfect medium for sharing critical information about how fraud looks when it's about to take place.
I mean, exactly, because you need to know what the crime looks like to know how to protect yourself. South Africa, we know what physical crime looks like,
Yeah.
Maybe I should start like a series where I scam artists, like a fisher, get a picture of an oak who looks like a fish and say, Tsotsi from West Side Story, and so we can visually get used to them.
I'm curious. What does that fisher look like?
I know, because we don't know what they look like. They just look like another guy.
Yes.
Every picture you see of a hacker on our website or any other news website is always someone wearing a hoodie, working on a computer, and this code's like scrambling across it, when actually, basically, the picture is someone in a call center.
Exactly. It would have been so much easier if they were wearing a hoodie and they were scary.
Yeah.
Your natural defenses would rise up. But they look like the guy next door sitting in a call center in front of a laptop, just answering questions. So it's very hard to tell who's a fraudster and who's not.
What are some of the most common ones that Standard Bank sees?
I think one of the most prevalent ones at the moment is vishing. Sounds like a big term, but it's essentially people are using the phone to con you. They will call you pretending to be from your bank or from the revenue authorities, the tax authorities, or even sometimes they pretend to be from the police service. And when they call, they create a sense of urgency. Something is horribly wrong
panic. If you don't do something now,
there is a problem with your account. Often clients get told, there's a problem with your account, move your money to this safe account. An account you've never heard of, an account you don't know. But because you're in a moment of panic, you're not going to think, wait, whose account is this that I'm moving money to?
But the thing they also do is because you can get anyone's ID number, there's been so many data hacks. You can buy all of this on the dark web. Eugene Kaspersky of Kaspersky Internet Security showed me once, years ago, how you can buy and sell identities on the dark web. And it's got nothing to do with someone wanting to own a South African passport. They just want to have your credit card so they can rip you off. They're not interested in your X account or your Facebook account or your Twitter account. They just want to get to your details. They'll create a fake identity and scam you, and then you pay the bill.
Create a fake identity, but also convince you that they know you. You see, with social engineering, you'll be listening for signs that this person knows me. So if they come and they tell you your home address, they tell you what you ate for dinner yesterday, you might think, goodness, okay, maybe it is the bank. Maybe they do know me. And then you let your guard down and you start sharing information. So even if somebody knows information about you, it doesn't mean that they got that information in a legitimate way. And that's how vishing shows up, right? So they will tell you things to get you to divulge more sensitive information, and they use that to then defraud you. That's one form of vishing. The other form of vishing, which we see targeting more vulnerable people in our society, the elderly that may have just received their pensions, etc.
Breaks my heart.
They get targeted with investment scams that are also vishing. So somebody will call them and say, look, I know you're just going to receive money. We can grow this money and make sure that for the rest of your life, you're well taken care of. You'll get 300% interest in 3 weeks if you invest. And they get taken in, right? So they hand over the money and it disappears into thin air, and they never get back these ridiculous returns that they were promised.
I know. It's terrible because the people who get scammed get shamed, or they feel shame. And that's like a whole nother punishment that they don't deserve.
They feel shame, but also part of the scam is to get them to keep quiet. Often you'll find that a vishing victim gets told, don't tell anybody that you've invested this money because then it's going to reduce your chances of maximizing what you earn, right? So they'll keep quiet for a month. And then only when they realize, no, it's been quiet for too long, then they share that they've participated in this investment. And by that time, that money is long gone. Yeah. It's very hard to recover. Yeah. So I think the key message here is, if you suspect that there's been fraudulent activity, report it immediately.
Yeah. I remember years ago, someone did that email scam to us where you have to they changed the account numbers. But we picked up on it, and it's just, I mean, it's a terrifying process when that happens to anybody, because suddenly you're like, you've just done something foolish and you've lost your money, and no one ever wants to admit they've done something stupid or feel stupid, I mean, it transcends generations, doesn't it? It's not just the elderly. Everybody wishes they can stumble upon a Facebook investment when Mark Zuckerberg's getting people to spray paint the walls and giving them shares in the company. We all wish that it's kind of like you're walking down the veldt and you see a gold nugget. And most of the time, it's always fool's gold.
We all wish for that. Yeah. And that's why many people fall for it. Across the age spectrum, it's not just the elderly. Even young people fall for it. I mean, you often see scams even on social media where, somebody will advertise an amazing car and people pay money into an account expecting that they're buying this. And when they get to the garage is empty. There's no car. Yeah. Young people.
Or apparently the latest trend is people buy dogs. Anyway, but all the basic things, what should people do? Check if this person exists. Search for this company. Search for who they are. Look for reviews about them. The first thing I say to everyone is just do a little research. Look around.
Verify who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And how do you verify? I'll start with, if they are taking an investment, right? You can verify with the Financial Sector Conduct Authority. If they're not registered with the authorities, maybe you need to think twice.
They're not registered with the authority. Don't give them any money. You've got no recourse.
Right. But if you think about these good scams, when you're buying from somebody and you want to make sure you're dealing with a reputable dealer, be cautious of reviews. Because sometimes scammers actually get people to generate fake reviews. So don't just look at the reviews online. Look at where the company is located. How long have they been around? Is what they're saying on the website matching the products that they're selling? Look at the people behind the company. You really need to verify who are you doing business with before you give them your money.
And I don't think that's extraneous. I don't think that's people have to put in more effort to do that. Why? Because if I want to buy a product, that's what we do. I research it, I read about it, I look at it, I read a few reviews.
Absolutely.
That's what stuff is there for. We help people make purchasing decisions all the time.
Yeah.
It's a decision. You've got to go through the steps.
Absolutely. Invest a little time in verifying who you're dealing with. And before you pay your money, verify the account details.
Yeah.
Right? If it's Belinda that's making the sale, but when you pay, it's somebody else's details, then you have to ask questions. Why don't the details match the name of the person I'm dealing with?
So for instance, something I've started doing lately is like when you set up a new beneficiary on your bank account, there's an option to check the bank details.
Yes.
I've never done that up until a couple of months ago. I know they're correct. I'm cutting and pasting them off the invoice, but I just do the test anyway.
Yes.
Just as because it's available. Why wouldn't I use it?
It's a great habit.
Yeah.
It's a great habit.
Not very often people tell me I have good habits, so thank you. Any other things that people should be particularly conscious of?
I think I've spoken about vishing, but I want to talk about phishing because it too can take different forms. So the most obvious...
Phishing with a PH.
PH, absolutely. You can get an email with a link, and that link takes you to a website and asks you to input information. Absolutely be cautious of clicking on emails and don't put in your personal details.
Absolutely. I never click on the link from a bank. I go to the browser and I type in the link myself.
Absolutely.
101.
And one other one that we're seeing more frequently is these free subscriptions to an app, like streaming apps.
Yes.
Click here to download and watch free programs. There is nothing for mahala, Toby.
I know.
What happens when you click that link and you download? You're actually allowing malware, malicious software to be installed on your device. And that malicious software can be used to collect sensitive information about you, which will then be used to commit a crime, a fraud later. So don't click on links to download software. Download software or apps from your official app store.
Exactly. It's the kind of what we know about physical security. Don't get into a car with a stranger. Don't take sweets from a stranger.
Precisely.
You know, I mean, we've got to upgrade those these days. But don't click on a link in a phishing email. It's the simplest thing we can do. And yet, common sense deserts us in the moments that we need it most, doesn't it?
Anyway, it does.
So what I'm impressed with is that you found a way to communicate to people in a memorable way. I really love the fairy tales. They're really clever ones. In fact, I really like the idea of finding another way to communicate to people. You know, we want people to be a different way. Like, we've got to come up with the new cybersecurity ground rules.
The message is the same. How you deliver the message is what we need to get creative with, because you need to make sure that you can reach the person that needs to hear that message in the most effective way.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, because that's what we do as journalists. If my audience, if I'm writing something or if I'm doing a talk, doesn't understand me, I don't think it's their fault. I think it's my fault. I haven't done my job properly. I think this has been a really great conversation about some of the practical things people can do and the kind of concerns that all of us have about our security. Let's work out how we can start teaching youngsters look left, look right with cybersecurity.
Thank you for having me, Toby. Great conversation.
You've been listening and watching the Stuff Podcast. My name is Toby Shapshak. Our executive director is Sally Hudson. Our director of audio is Hans Baumgarten. Our video director is Tepo Tayela. And you can read more on stuff.co.za. Please like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. It really does help. Thank you very much.